Sarah felt the October wind cut through her sweater as she waited in the car line outside Millbrook Elementary, the old brick school rising against a slate-gray sky like something from a faded photograph. At 3:30 sharp, the doors opened and children poured out, their backpacks bouncing, their voices high and chaotic. But when Emma climbed into the back seat, she wasn't smiling. She clutched a piece of construction paper like it might break. "Hey, Bug," Sarah said, catching her daughter's eye in the rear view. "How was art class?" Emma didn't answer right away. She just stared at the drawing, her small fingers tracing the crayon lines. Sarah had learned to be patient with her daughter's quiet spells. Since the divorce, Emma sometimes needed extra time to find her words. But when Sarah finally saw the drawing at a stoplight, something cold curled in her stomach. It showed two little girls holding hands in a playground, drawn in that primitive way children have, oversized heads, stick limbs, sun smiling in the corner. But the details were wrong. The other girl wore a dress with a Peter Pan collar, white tights, patent leather shoes. No kid dressed like that anymore. And her face was just wrong. The eyes were hollow circles, heavy and dark. The mouth a thin, flat line. "Who's your friend?" Sarah asked, keeping her voice light. "Emily," Emma whispered. "She's new." At home, Sarah pinned the drawing to the refrigerator with a pizza-shaped magnet, trying to shake the unease. It was just a drawing. Kids had imaginary friends. But that night, Emma refused to sleep in her own room. She climbed into Sarah's bed, small and warm, her breath hitching with unspoken fears. "Emily says the walls talk at night," Emma mumbled into Sarah's shoulder. "She says they whisper my name." The next day, Sarah brought it up with Miss Evelyn after school. The substitute had been teaching Emma's second-grade class for 2 weeks while Mrs. Henderson was on maternity leave. She seemed normal enough, late 50s, graying hair in a severe bun, reading glasses on a chain. The kind of teacher Sarah remembered from her own childhood. Fundamentally harmless. "Emma seems attached to a new friend," Sarah said, holding out the drawing. "Emily?" Miss Evelyn's hands trembled slightly as she took the paper. Her knuckles were raw, chapped. "Oh yes, Emily's been very good for Emma. She's drawn her out of her shell." Something in her voice caught Sarah's attention. Too warm, too familiar. "Is Emily a new student? I didn't see her on the class roster." "Transfer," Miss Evelyn said quickly, smoothing the drawing on her desk. "Very recent. Shy girl. Emma's been a wonderful help." But when Sarah scanned the classroom, counting heads, there were only 15 children, and every one of them she knew from birthday parties and soccer practice. No Emily. That evening, Emma brought home another drawing. This one showed the two girls in what was clearly Millbrook's library, with its distinctive stained glass windows. Emily was reading to Emma, the book open between them. But the book had no words, just dark scribbles that went all the way to the edges. And Emily's hand on Emma's shoulder had too many fingers. "Emma, honey, is Emily real?" Sarah asked, hating the way her voice cracked. Emma looked up from her chicken nuggets, her expression serious beyond her years. "She's as real as you are, Mommy. She says she's been waiting." By Friday, Sarah had 4 drawings. Each one showed Emma and Emily in a different part of the school: music room, cafeteria, gymnasium. In each, Emily's appearance grew subtly more defined, her features sharper. And in each, there was something wrong with the background. In the cafeteria drawing, the other children were just gray smudges, faceless. In the gym, the basketball hoop hung crooked, its net rotted. Sarah started dropping Emma off at school instead of using the car line. She wanted to see the other parents, gauge their reactions. At the gate, she cornered Jenna, mother of Emma's friend Madison. "Has Madison mentioned a new girl, Emily?" Jenna's face blanked. "No, there's no new student. Why?" The cold feeling in Sarah's stomach turned to ice. She spent the morning in her car across the street, watching the school through binoculars. She saw Miss Evelyn leading her class out for recess, 15 small bodies in puffy jackets. No 16th child, no Emily. When she confronted Principal Jacobs, the woman listened with that practiced patience administrators have for overprotective parents. She pulled up the enrollment database on her computer, the blue light reflecting off her glasses. No new students in second grade, she confirmed, and no Emily in any grade. But Miss Evelyn said, "I'll speak with her," Jacobs interrupted, but her tone was dismissive. "Substitutes sometimes get confused. Mrs. Henderson will be back next week." Sarah wasn't satisfied. That night, she went through Emma's backpack piece by piece. Torn worksheets, a broken pencil, a pink eraser, and, tucked into the lining, a small photograph. It had clearly been printed on a home printer, pixelated and yellowed. 2 girls in front of Millbrook Elementary, but the photo was dated. The clothes were wrong. The quality was wrong. On the back, in careful block letters, "Emily and Emma, best friends." But Sarah had never taken this photo, and when she looked closer at the background, at the cars in the parking lot, she recognized her ex-husband's old Toyota, the one he'd sold 3 years ago. Mrs. Henderson's return was delayed. Appendicitis, the office said. Miss Evelyn would finish the month. Sarah began keeping Emma home 2 days a week, feigning stomach aches that felt too real. On the days she did send her daughter, she spent the entire time parked outside, watching. Other parents started noticing. At soccer practice, Madison's mother pulled Sarah aside. "Maddie says Emma talks to herself at lunch, that she's saving a seat for someone who isn't there." The Whisper Network activated. Sarah wasn't the only one getting drawings now. 3 other parents reported artwork featuring the same hollow-eyed girl in old-fashioned clothes. But only Emma's drawings had the messages. Tiny words, scrawled in margins, in a hand too mature for a 7-year-old. "She likes the library best. The music room walls remember. Don't let them forget me again." Sarah tried talking to Emma directly, pulling her daughter onto her lap one rainy evening. The apartment felt too small, the windows too dark. "Sweetheart, who is Emily, really?" Emma's expression didn't change. She just leaned in close, her breath warm on Sarah's ear, and whispered, "She's the girl who used to sit at my desk. She says the desk remembers her weight. She says the inkwell called her name." Inkwell? Millbrook hadn't had inkwells since the 70s. That night, Sarah broke into the school. She'd volunteered enough to know the door code, and desperation made her brave. The halls were different after dark, lit only by exit signs that painted everything in blood-red shadows. Her footsteps echoed too loudly. The second-grade classroom door was unlocked. Inside, the smell of old paper and chalk dust was overwhelming. Emma's desk was third from the window. Sarah ran her hands under the lid, feeling for something. Her fingers caught on carved letters, worn smooth by decades of small hands. She used her phone's flashlight. Emily Rose Chen, 1979-1987. Don't forget. Below it, fresher carvings, still sharp. Emma, she's waiting. The name clicked into place like a key. Chen. Mrs. Chen, the school secretary who'd worked at Millbrook forever. The woman who'd processed Emma's enrollment, who'd known Sarah was divorced, who'd commented on Emma's shyness, who'd recommended Miss Evelyn for the substitute position. Sarah found her in her office the next morning, before the first bell. Mrs. Chen was making coffee, her movements slow and methodical. On her desk, in a small silver frame, was a photograph of a girl in a Peter Pan collared dress. "Tell me about Emily," Sarah said, her voice hard. Mrs. Chen didn't look up. "She was my daughter, second grade, room 204. She fell from the top of the playground slide, October 17th, 1987. The substitute that day left the class unattended. We fired her, of course, but Emily, she loved school so much, she didn't want to leave." The date was 4 days from now. "And Miss Evelyn?" Sarah whispered. "Miss Evelyn was the substitute. She's been trying to make it right for 30 years. Sarah's legs gave out. She gripped the doorframe. "That's impossible! She'd be in her 60s. Mrs. Chen finally turned, her eyes wet, but her expression resigned. "She was 24 when Emily died. She's 54 now. She looks the same as she did then. Time doesn't work the same when you're waiting." The bell rang. Children began filling the halls, but Sarah could only hear one set of footsteps, slow and measured, coming down the corridor. Miss Evelyn appeared in the doorway, her gray bun immaculate, her smile gentle and terrible. "Emma's ready," she said. "Emily has waited so long for a friend who understands." The school went into lockdown at 10:47 a.m., not a drill. Sarah heard the announcement in the office, the principal's voice cracking over the intercom. "This is a code red. All students in their classrooms." Mrs. Chen grabbed Sarah's wrist. "It's happening. The anniversary. She wants them all to remember." They ran together, past classrooms where teachers were pulling shades, locking doors. Room 204 was at the end of the hall. The door was closed, but through the window, Sarah could see her daughter. Emma stood alone in the center of the room, surrounded by her classmates frozen at their desks, unmoving like statues. And there, holding Emma's hand, was a girl in a Peter Pan collared dress, white tights streaked with mud, one shoe missing. Her face was still wrong, still hollow-eyed, but now Sarah could see through her, through them both. Miss Evelyn stood at the chalkboard, writing dates in looping cursive. October 17th, 1987. October 17th, 2023. October 17th, 2059. Sarah pounded on the door. "Emma!" Her daughter turned. Her eyes were empty. "Mommy, Emily says I can stay. She says the school remembers me now. She says the walls won't forget." The lockdown alarm screamed, but beneath it, Sarah heard something else. The whisper of dozens of childish voices, all saying the same name. "Emily, Emily, Emily." Mrs. Chen produced a key, her hands shaking so badly she dropped it twice. When she finally got the door open, the classroom was empty. No Miss Evelyn, no ghost girl, just Emma, sitting at her desk, coloring quietly. The other children were at their seats too, blinking as if waking from a dream. Everything seemed normal. Except for the drawings. Every child had one. 15 pictures of Emma and Emily, all identical, all placed face down on their desks like place cards at a funeral. And on the chalkboard, in Emma's handwriting, words that hadn't been there before. She needed a friend who wouldn't leave. I volunteered. The aftermath was bureaucratic and surreal. Principal Jacobs insisted there had been no lockdown, no alarm. The footage from the security cameras showed Sarah and Mrs. Chen running down an empty hallway, pounding on the door of an empty classroom. Emma had been in the library the entire time. The librarian confirmed it. When Sarah showed her the drawings, the principal's face went pale. "Those were supposed to be destroyed," she whispered, 30 years ago. Emily Rose Chen. The name haunted Sarah's search history. The child had died on the playground, yes, but the details were wrong. She hadn't fallen. She'd been pushed. By a girl who wanted her desk, her friends, her life. A girl who'd moved away the next month, whose name was sealed in juvenile records. A girl who'd grown up, changed her name, and come back to the same school as a substitute teacher. Miss Evelyn wasn't the substitute from 1987. She was the student. The desk remembered, the walls remembered, and Emily had been waiting for someone innocent enough to invite her back in. Emma seemed fine. She stopped talking about Emily, stopped drawing her, but she started sitting at the back of the class, away from the windows. She stopped raising her hand. She stopped playing with Madison at recess. When Sarah asked her what was wrong, Emma would just smile and say, "I'm being still, Mommy, so still." It was the school photographer who provided the final piece. He came for fall portraits, setting up his backdrop in the gym. When he sent the proofs, Sarah almost deleted them. Emma's individual shot was perfect, her smile wide and genuine. But the class photo showed 16 children, 15 living, breathing kids, and one girl in a Peter Pan collar dress standing just behind Emma, her hands on her shoulders, her hollow eyes staring directly into the camera. The photographer's note attached, "Not sure who the extra is. Did you want me to Photoshop her out?" Sarah called Mrs. Chen. The secretary answered on the first ring, as if she'd been waiting. "She's in the picture now," Mrs. Chen said. "Not a question. She's permanent." That night, Sarah checked on Emma. Her daughter slept soundly, her breathing deep and regular. But in the dim glow of the nightlight, Sarah could see the faint outline of another shape in the bed beside her, a smaller shape, with hollow eyes that gleamed in the dark. She didn't sleep. She sat in the hallway, scrolling through her phone until she found what she was looking for. An obituary from 1987, Emily Rose Chen. And beneath it, a single comment posted that morning at 3:47 a.m. from a user named Emily_Rose_87. "Thank you for the new body. She fits perfectly."